Welcome to the Future of Payroll and Workforce Management Insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com. My name is Brent Skinner. I'm your host. I'm also the executive community leader of Future of Work here at HR.com. Today, my guest is Mary Faulkner. She's principal at IA. Mary, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Brent. Nice to be here. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Really looking forward to today's topic. We're going to look at, there's sort of the dream people are chasing to have one global HCM solution to rule them all. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, and everybody seems to hit the brakes or a roadblock or whatever when it comes to the United States, and which is kind of funny. Land of the free. It's actually really tough to do HCM here, and we're going to get into that. But like I like to start off the episodes with asking my guests, what got you into the world of work, into this line of work? Because so many people have a real passion about the world of work, and I'm just curious what yours is, Mary.
Well, I used to always explain my career progression as I kind of Forrest Gump my way through it because my initial thought was I was going to be a stunt car driver. That was my plan from the time I was a child, and then somehow I ended up here. But really, where I am today, it really comes out of just being really curious and being a problem solver at heart. So throughout my entire career as an HR practitioner in house organizations for 20 years, I was always brought in to, hey, can you fix this? My background is in learning and organizational development, and it was always help us make this make sense. Let's look at this process and make it better. And then I started either building or rebuilding departments or working for startups. And I just love that kind of work because there's that piece of how do we make this better or how do we figure this out? And so I get to do that now with my current role at IA, and I get to do it with a whole bunch of different companies and a whole bunch of different industries. So it's really about let's figure it out and that curiosity that keeps me going.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's so many things to figure out in HCM and enterprise software and enterprise workflow and everything. You really picked the right career, I would say. So let's get into this. The headline, that sort of the working headline for this podcast, has the word smorgasbord in it. I think it has screeching halt in it as well, and all this kind of stuff. There has been sort of you and I, we've noticed that there's sort of this inclination, a trend. There is some energy behind this idea that, hey, let's put together a real true global HCM solution where you basically you might need some add-ons, some best of breed here, something piped in there or whatever. But if you just for the basics of your HCM, one solution to rule them all, if you will, right? And everybody leaves the US for last, and that might be the wrong thing to do. So I think let's start off here. Why do HCM rollouts so often underestimate the regulatory and operational complexity of the United States? What should leaders do differently up front? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be helpful to kind of take a step back even and look at why are companies doing this. When to anyone who's ever worked in HR and you deal with data in any kind of way, there's this struggle to find the single source of truth. So in the olden days when we were all working off spreadsheets and hoping that would work, you were trying to reconcile all these different things. And as cloud-based systems started to be really popular and be available more readily, there was this opportunity to say, I no longer have to pull all these things in. I can just go to one place and all my data is there, and I can set up different org structures and still have them all in the same system. And global companies look at that and say, yes, we want that too. Because especially in a world where global organizations might be growing through acquisition as opposed to kind of that organic growth, they're bringing on all these different systems and just trying to make it work. And file feeds kind of work sometimes or they don't work. And there's this dream, like you were saying, I'm going to have one single source of truth that's going to be amazing. And then I don't have to go and ask for all this data and I can control everything in one place. But that's because they have a very sometimes sort of European centric or APAC centric look at it, where in the EU, there are the same kind of regulations and rules. And yes, there's laws that are different from country to country, but in general, there's some very similar data privacy rules and that sort of thing. And you have healthcare and other benefits are more at the country level. So there's this kind of bias of, oh, that's how it's going to be, or this belief that we are going to start with us so that we're ready to go. There's all these other countries, they're running on their own systems today. We'll leave them alone. We'll figure our stuff out, and then we'll bring everybody on board as we continue to evolve our approach. Or another reason might be is that they're already on that system and they're all set. And so we're going to just start bringing on everybody. Sounds like a great idea. They're all taking this kind of 80-20 rule of 80% of it's going to be exactly the same and we'll vary where we have to and everything. So they're going through and they have these great implementation teams that they're going country to country and they're saying, here's our wave and here's the requirements that we have and look how we have this set up and this beautiful. Well, they get to the United States and they hit, okay, there's the country laws, and then there's the state laws, and oh, there could be county laws, and there could also be city laws, and all of these things have to be figured out. And then there's California, right? So there's all these, and much love to California, but if you're trying to set up any kind of system with the requirements and you are unfamiliar with California law, it is mind-boggling for companies to come in. And the challenge, it's not so much that we're more complex. I mean, we kind of are. We're higher maintenance, it's just one of those things. But it's because the decisions that are made at the front end with how you're setting up your org structures, how you're setting up the way that your system is configured, you've made some decisions that are really difficult, if not impossible to undo, that don't take into account the complexity of the United States. So if you can leave the US last if you want to, as long as you are including the US in the conversations up front. Otherwise, you are stuck and you've painted yourself into a corner. And we've worked with companies that have felt themselves having to take a step backwards in functionality because they have been boxed in by this very standard global rollout. And now they are losing their onboarding solution. They're losing their benefits solution, and they have to kind of bodge together all this stuff just in the name of making sure that they can connect to just that one single source of truth.
You know what's interesting? Um, it's almost just an assumption. Oh yeah, we should have one system for our global HCM ecosystem, right? And is that even the right sort of direction to go most of the time? I mean, is that a good instinct, or is that sort of it's understandable. You're not going to put anyone down for having this vision, right? But is it the right vision to have?
I, I'm going to give you the most HR answer in the world. It depends. It depends.
Ah,
But it does kind of depend. It depends on what you're trying to do with the data. I mean, there's absolutely having a single source of data is important, but you're still going to run into situations where you cannot have a single HCM instance in every country because China requires the data to live in country. Russia does the same thing, and other countries have different data privacy requirements that may or may not preclude you from being able to have a single system housed outside of some of the countries. So you have to really know what you're dealing with your goals. I really think that the intent of it is pure. There's this
yeah.
belief that if I have everything in one system, we're not having to do conversions. We can get data. We can run global reports. Finally, we can start looking at things more holistically as a company. But if it's harder to put everyone on the same HCM than it is to do some of the workarounds, then you need to really start looking at, is that beneficial? Or are there other solutions you can look at there's the global HCM, and yeah, maybe this country in the US has a separate HCM, but as long as we're getting you our demographic data, the data that you absolutely need to be able to have in your single source of truth, what's the harm other than extra cost potentially to have this other HCM? So that's why I'm saying it depends. It just what's your budget? What's your support team look like? What are the goals that you're trying to do with your organization? And are you able to streamline the experience enough that it's not going to be that big of a difference?
Are there industries where it makes a lot of sense to have a global HCM system?
Oh
To have more
gosh. Yeah,
or
probably. I mean,
types of
that's a terrible one. I was like, I mean, I could be just like, absolutely, and here's the 10. And it's like, yeah, I mean, more complex ones, potentially, ones that have larger global organizations that have a lot of employees, potentially. Um, if you're a highly regulated industry, it's probably a good idea to be on a singular HCM just so that you have more control over your data and it's easier to run audits and have those controls. But it does just come down to how you operate.
Okay, okay. Let's pivot a little bit here because there's a couple of things we want to talk about today. Um, we were talking in the green room, you and I. This is not a late night talk show, but we do have a green room, and we were talking about a lot of organizations come to you, whether it's under the sort of the context of what we're talking about today, or what we've been talking about today, or just they have some sort of a solution, they're having a problem with it. Um, what is your sort of your this is probably not the right word, your ethos, or what's your how do you go about this? What's your approach? Is is do you see most clients sort of staying with the same solution afterward, or do they really make a change, or what's going on there when a potential client comes to IA, is having trouble with their solution? What is what are sort of the questions you ask them, just from a high level, and how do you figure out how to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, nobody loves first of all, nobody loves their solution 100%. There is no one perfect system for every company out there. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. It can't be everything for everybody. But we really try to dig down into what is really the pain? Where are the struggles that you're having? How did it get implemented? Did you do process optimization before you implemented, or did you do a lift and shift? Do you have in place today a regular governance process so that you can look at the release management and understand, is this a release you want to take? When's the last time you took a release from your provider and made sure that you were up to date on everything? So we really try to dig into the circumstances under which the original system was implemented. How has it been maintained, and what's really what's driving the frustration with the system? Because yeah, it could be the system doesn't can't do what you need it to do anymore because you outgrew it. That happens quite a bit. But a lot of times it's because it was truly a lift and shift, and you, not to pick on either provider, but you took an on-premise PeopleSoft and tried to recreate it in a cloud-based Workday environment. They're two completely different systems that work differently, and you should have a different way of approaching them. But you're trying to rebuild the same process, a broken process in a new system. And that's going to happen regardless of what you do. So we really try to dig into those elements. And, we'll have people who come to us and say, we just need a new system. I'm like, all right, well, let's do some investigation and we'll do some process mapping and we'll do our discovery, and we take a really in-depth end-to-end approach. And we'll find out it's not your system at all. It's the things that are happening before it even touches the system, or it's what's coming out of the system and how you're using it, or it's behavioral. It has nothing to do with the system itself. So we try to separate the technology from the process. We are very tech agnostic. So, and by doing that, you're able to really step back and look at the process and not be, well, Workday's broken because it doesn't do this. It's like, no, what is it that you want the system to do? And is the system able to do it? And if it is able to do it, why is it not doing it? So that's kind of the approach that we try to take.
Yeah, yeah, it almost sounds like sort of couples therapy for
Oh,
the
so much.
client and
We
and the
joke that
vendor, right?
we should add therapist, unofficial therapist to all of our job titles.
Excuse me. Excuse me, I have a little bit of cough here. Yeah, because you have, sort of the two parties, and they're coming to you and say, "Hey, we just wanna end this." You're like, "Hey, wait a minute, let's see if we can find out how you guys can stay together maybe," It's just, uh, um I wonder if have you ever had people sort of come to you and say, "Hey, we wanna go to a one global HCM system, and here's what we have," and have you ever sort of had a situation where you said, "Well, you know what? Maybe you might not want to do that, or if you do, you wanna do A, B, and C instead of LMNOP," which is what you said, or something like that?
Yep, we have. We have.
Yeah.
And it's not it's one of those things of we would never say, well, I'm not going to say never, never, but most of the time we're not going to completely advise against something. We're just going to highlight some of the challenges or the risks of going down a certain path might present, of saying, all right, you can do this. We see that, but here are some things that you need to consider. Or so here's some of the challenges that we've seen when other organizations do that. Do you still want to move down that path? So we still want to make sure that we're presenting all of the all of the options to an organization. Where we've seen recently with some of our clients, and I'm thinking of one in particular, but highly confidential. We don't share our clients. You're not going to see a lot of logos on our website, by the way. But it became, we're going down the path of this assumption that at this time we are going to help them roll onto their HCM, and we had to find kind of an interim solution until that fully rolled out. And we started hearing of some challenges with the global rollout. Yet we were under a deadline in the US of saying, okay, but this one goes away and we can't sign a continuation. The provider's not going to allow us to do that. So what are the odds? What can we do? And it really did, it came down to the fact that we were able to show the pros and cons, and the company made the decision that the US was going to be able to create their own HCM. Global HCM would still exist, and that we would share some data between the two. And that it was a win-win because the complexity of the United States, we were able to keep that moving uninterrupted, deal with all the different intricacies at the US level, but still get the data to global as they needed it. It's rare, I will say, that you can kind of change directions once a global rollout is underway. It's pretty rare, but it's not unheard of. So I guess to those of you who might be listening to the podcast who are part of a global organization who may or may not find themselves in this situation, just build your business case. Think about, like, ask the questions. If you hear that there's a global HCM, ask to be involved early on with some of the configuration decisions. Make sure that your HCM sponsors are aware of some of the complexities in the United States that are kind of your non-negotiables. There's always, anytime you go global or anytime you even just standardize anything, somebody's going to lose something they love because you're trying to do that 80/20. You're trying to get to something standardized. But have your ducks in a row to be able to go to global and say, here are some of the challenges that we are concerned about. Just please make sure you're keeping this in mind as you're contemplating this rollout.
What does a healthy vendor-client relationship kinda look like? What does it look like in this era of maybe there's more than one, example, like, it takes many expresses many forms, but I'm just curious, like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's really about both parties speaking up. It's, the from a provider perspective, them really being proactive, knowing the client, understanding what they need. So if you think about the typical sales process, your sales team gets to know you really, really well because they've been talking to you about all the pain points that you're dealing with. They understand your requirements, all of that. And you kind of get this really good relationship with your salesperson. And then a lot of times they go away and they have handed you off to a customer care team. That customer care team, that handoff piece, if that is not done well, the client feels like they're starting over. So the best relationships start with an excellent handoff from sales to customer care and making sure that they understand, here's who this company is. And then there's that customer care rep who does a proactive approach of understanding what's going on. They have a news feed going on of like, oh, this is what the company's going through. They just announced a merger. This is exciting. This could be an opportunity for them to take on more of the SKUs that we sell. Or they're going to have some challenges because I know we didn't configure it that way. It's really knowing the client and beyond just that quarterly phone call of like, how's it going? It's so that's one side of things, of being really proactive and reaching out to the client because you know what their challenges are. On the client side, what's healthy is speaking up. If something's not working, let the provider know. And it's beyond just maybe opening a ticket and that piece, but sitting down and really having those quarterly business reviews and saying, here's what's working, here's what's not working. Why isn't this working? Or if you feel like you're not getting responses fast enough, let them know. Because, I mean, some of these providers are very, very big organizations, and there are going to be some levels of separation between kind of that strategic customer care account manager and the people who are dealing with the day to day, and they're not always talking every day. So if you need to raise some of these issues up to your strategic coordinator, do it. It's okay. That's what they're there for. That's why you're paying them all the money, right? So it's having those good open lines of communication, and on the client side, really making sure that you are doing what you can to stay abreast of the technological advances that they're offering you, that you're really thinking about what are some of the things that we need, and that you have a good, excellent internal governance process by which you have that cross functional team who are reviewing all the release notes and making decisions together to determine what's the most important thing for us to take right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's somebody should write a book with examples of really, really good client vendor relationships and and give it to all the broken client vendor relationship people out there and see if they can
You'd have to read it.
and
They're not even reading the release notes yet, Brent.
yeah, right, right, right. It'll be an audio book. It'll be a forced podcast of you,
It's a
like
podcast.
Clockwork
There
Orange.
you go.
So anyway, Mary, thank you so much. This has been a really illuminating conversation. We could talk about this all day. Our podcast is only about 20 minutes, though, so we've reached the end of our time together. We'll have to have you back on.
Absolutely, I would love to.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at hr.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.